Have you ever encountered the divine? Ever knelt before an altar and speak to the Almighty, hoping to hear the gods whisper back with blessings? No? Well, I have, and it was horrifying. The world of Iskara is home to many dangerous beings, both of this world and from beyond it. Chief among them are the Ventara, deities whose domains encapsulate the darker aspects of reality. At the dawn of time, it is said the gods would be birthed from the intermingling of the primordial forces of order and chaos, Orthos and Kos, respectively. For eons, they would wander the empty expanse, waging war amongst one another, carving out their own pocket realms and pursuing their own machinations. But the emergence of life in the young world of Iskara would forever alter the course of history. The first gods to take an interest in the strange and mortal beings would, in time, be known as the Isran, or simply the Divines. However, those that saw these fledgling mortals as nothing of import would be forever branded as the Ventara, the Forsaken. For much of Iskara's history, the Ventara paid it little mind, believing it to be a waste of their godly power. But that would change when the mortal races reached their zenith. It is unknown what exactly drew the attention of the Ventara, and all records that have survived from those times only adds to the theories and speculations. Regardless, the Ventara made their presence known through violence. Known as the Incursion, several Ventara tore through the magical barrier called the Veil, which is supposed to protect Iskara in the material realm which it resides in. These demons, along with their monstrous legions, wreaked untold havoc and nearly destroyed all life on Iskara, and it is said that some among even the Divines, whose names have long been forgotten, were slain. For decades, mortal survivors resisted the Ventara and their hordes, and it was only with the aid of the surviving Divines and their blessed chosen, the Ascendant, that the legions of the Void Realms were driven back. Despite their victory, the survivors were left with a shattered world and millions of lives lost. And worst of all, from that day onward, the Divines that had protected them so fiercely, the ones that had guided them for centuries, went silent and vanished. And while the veil was mostly repaired, the Ventara have found a way to commune with the insane, the corrupt, and the mad among mortals to fulfill their grand schemes. As mentioned before, the Ventara are powerful deities who call the endless realm of the void home. It is here that each Ventara, powerful enough to do so, have formed their own pocket realms to suit their whims and reflect who they are. Within these dimensions, one will find reality-defying vistas and the minions that serve their respective gods, the Velkins. From records, artifacts, and more recent encounters, there are 19 known Ventara, most of which have shown a keen interest in mortal affairs and who delight in sowing chaos and discord. It is also speculated that many more Ventara linger in the unending void, biding their time to make their presence known. Throughout history, many have communed or encountered these dark gods, and those that emerge with their sanity intact have returned with many tales to tell and powerful artifacts capable of shifting the tides of history. The perfect divine, the one bathed in gold and lord of all that is pristine, Vayne typically appears as a male in most of his dealings with mortals. His domains: perfection, pride, ambition, and selfishness. For no other being is worthy of such spheres of influence. The realm in which Vayne holds dominion is the blinding mirrored rooms. Within the realm stands the alluring halls, which serve as Vayne's seat of power and is best described as an intricate mosaic of reflective crystals and shimmering mirrors, and at its center lies the prismatic palace. The palace is where Vayne is said to primarily reside, and is a massive construct so magnificent in its design that it can blind the unprepared. Vayne, like most of his kin, cares little for the lives of mortals, but every now and then one of stunning beauty or talent will catch his eye, and he will go through great lengths to acquire them. There are two known artifacts pertaining to Vayne, the Staff of Vanity and the Gilded Bands. The staff has a unique enchantment which compels its wielder to focus entirely on themselves to a near fatal extent. At first glance, this effect may seem counterproductive and more of a hindrance rather than an all-powerful artifact. However, for those that truly understand its capabilities, they are granted an opportunity to sow immense chaos. The enchantment on the bands allow the wearer to manipulate the ambitions and will of themselves and those of weaker willpower. This enchantment is said to increase in power with every ring equipped, making it a prize collector's item. The Eternal Nightmare, the Master of Fear, and Lord of Dark Thoughts, Baal is the god that presides over the domains of fear, nightmares, and doubt. In their dealings with mortals, Baal takes on the appearance of one's greatest fear until they deem a mortal worthy of seeing their intangible, true form. The warped dream is the realm formed and ruled over by Baal, and is described as one of the most disturbing realms of any Ventara. Often described as an eternal void in which one can only see a few feet in front of them, the few that have managed to survive and retain most of their sanity speak of creatures lurking just out of sight, hissing and croaking as they inch their way closer to their prey. Some speak of the occasional flash of lightning that brightens the abyss, revealing the dark spawn that stalks its infinite shadows. The realm is also notoriously difficult to map and navigate, as it is constantly shifting, never remaining the same for long. One area in the dream does, however, remain the same. At the very center of the dream lies the waking locus, the heart of the realm. No mortal has managed to enter the locus, as all who have attempted report visceral feelings of existential dread and terror as they made their approach. There are 3 known artifacts associated with the Lord of Terror: the Dream Eater's staff, the Courage Breaker, and the Dubium's pendant. The Dream Eater, as the name suggests, consumes the dreams of a victim to fuel it. It then induces a prolonged period of night terrors, whittling down the victim's sanity with every slumber. The Courage Breaker is said to instigate deep, crippling fear in its victim, rendering them either completely mad or incapable of fending for themselves. Legends speak of the staff having a mind of its own, compelled to induce as many episodes of terror as possible. It is believed that if a single wielder manages to use both staffs at once, they would be capable of rendering dozens of individuals as petrified husks of themselves, incapable of remembering anything of themselves or the world around them, with only their worst fear left to torture them. Fortunately, this has seldom occurred, but many are unsure if the state it causes is curable or a permanent damnation. Lastly, the pendant allows its wearer to understand and exploit almost anyone's insecurities, so long as their willpower is weak enough. The Never Fed, He Who Takes, and the Eternal Maw. Worm is the grotesque deity of gluttony, greed, and everlasting hunger. Often Worm takes on the appearance of a festering, rotund creature bathed in gold, which does little to mask his foul visage. The rapacious waste is the domain of Worm and serves as his seat of power. The wastes are described as an endless sea of bones, carrion, discarded scraps, and decaying filth. The few that have managed to enter the realm and return speak of a slimy fog that permeates most of it, and the unfathomable stench that accompanies it. Some have even had their senses dulled or nullified by the pungent odor. Some describe this fog as blanketing even the sky, and it flows with a mind of its own. Whether Worm is manipulating it or it commands itself is unknown. In tandem with the fog, the putrid remains and scattered bones serve as sufficient deterrence for any individual seeking access to the heart of the wastes. At its center lies a massive golden tower that stands despite its extremely poor condition. What lies within such a structure is unknown, as none have managed to enter its decaying halls. The Cannibal's Maw is a rather unique artifact in that it is placed within the user. The artifact itself is a collection of golden prostheses that attach to the user's teeth, typically the canines. They are engraved with strange runes and symbols of Worm, and the maw itself grants the ability for the user to consume raw flesh and meat with no negative side effects, and it is believed to enhance the user's strength, stamina, and agility after doing so. These effects are improved if the flesh consumed is of a sentient race, thus the artifact's name. This artifact has mostly remained within the hands of the Worm Feeders, a band of Worm's most devout followers. Harvester of souls, the grand tormentor and lord of cinder, Voldrun stands as the god of conquest, domination, and enslavement. Even among his kin, Voldrun is considered the greatest example of evil among them, for he wants nothing more than to see all beings, mortal or otherwise, grovel at his feet or beg for a mercy they shall never receive. His realm is known as the Ruins of Cinder, and as befits his spheres of influence, Voldrun's realm is a desolate, apocalyptic image of Iskara, which is achieved by both mocking imitation and the theft of pieces of the mortal realm. Descriptions of the plain vary widely depending on the region, but all accounts agree that the ruins are a dismal, smoldering, and largely lifeless realm, said to hold an innumerable amount of facilities, all constructed to further Vuldrun's nefarious schemes and plots. There are two artifacts associated with the Dark Lord, Vuldrun's Warhammer and the Tyrant's Will. The Warhammer drains its victim's stamina, life, strength, and arcana with every strike, transferring it to the wielder. The Tyrant's Will is unique in that it is a spell Vuldrun grants to one he believes would cause the most destruction. The spell allows the wielder to completely control its victims, though the number of thralls one can control depends on their arcane aptitude. The King of Taboos, Lord of Desires, and Taster of Dark Indulgences, Drevin, the Ventaran god of hedonism, debauchery, taboos, and deals, often appears as a gaunt male. Drevin is quite fond of mortals and their silly little rules, of which he takes a great pleasure in persuading them into breaking. Drevin's realm is divided into three distinct rings: the rapacious jungles, the alluring bliss, and finally the Sibar palaces, of which this realm is commonly referred to as. One of the few realms to value beauty, the palaces are designed to induce the greatest of euphorias and temptations. And only two artifacts are tied to Drevin's influence: the Trickster's Charm and the Deceiver's Blade. The charm is actually a staff capable of subtly corrupting its victim, driving them to pursue their deepest, darkest vices and desires. The blade is an unusual weapon, as its enchantment relies heavily upon illusions. Such illusions trick non-wielders into believing it to be a formal weapon it is not. For example, the wielder may cause the blade to shift into a dagger while their opponent sees a whip, forcing said opponent to adopt a combat style poorly suited for the given battle. She who plots, the Lady of Lies and the Web Spinner, Lyra is the goddess of lies, deceit, secrets, and betrayal. Believed to have once been one of the Iskara, one of honesty, sympathy, and camaraderie, Lyra has become twisted through unknown means, something many would find impossible. Her realm is the Scarlet Skyne, an infinite hive of caverns and tunnels home to an untold number of spider nests, toxic webbing, and breeding pools. The most infamous of Lyra's artifacts are the bloodied strings and the black blade. The strings are a gathering of web-like whips that its wielders can use as potent weapons. Laced with violent toxins, the strings can kill most mortals with a single strike, leaving them paralyzed as the searing pain slowly wears away at them. The black blade is said to have been corrupted just as Lyra was, once a symbol of purity and now feeds on betrayal. All one must do to increase its power is slay those closest to them, and the deeper the bond, the more it feeds. Back again, are you? And I thought I was foolish. Ah well, the gods welcome all, even the mad. Continuing our journey through the void, we shall now cover the next set of Ventara lords, sinister and twisted gods who seek to manipulate mortals in order to achieve their own desires. To that end, let's begin our descent into darkness. Bringer of change, the pandemonium, and the bedlam lord, Akal is the god of chaos and change. As such, they embody the coming and going of things, and they are often perceived as the antithetical deity to the orderly divines. As such, they are believed to be one of the most powerful among the Ventara. The realm is Perpetuum, a place that shifts in purpose and form just as much as its ruler does. In its current state, it is an amalgamation of floating islands, lava rivers, and verdant forests that emerge and decay in the matter of moments. However, records would suggest that a massive tree stands at the peak of a mountain range. It is one that is simultaneously alive and dead. Records over the centuries allude to the tree, suggesting that it remains one of the few features to remain somewhat constant within the realm. Ikal's artifacts are the Shiftland Hammer and Obsidia. The hammer is capable of altering its form among a set collection, with each possessing its own set of unique enchantments. Obsidia, on the other hand, is a spear capable of piercing most physical and magical materials and barriers, and with each successive strike it emits a violent, energetic blast. However, for centuries the spear has remained fractured, with several pieces being scattered across the known world. The Wings of Wrath, the Great Lady of Pain, and the Reaver, Valkyr is the goddess of wrath, savagery, and violence. As such, she is a warrior through and through. Because of her spheres of influence, she has become a patron deity for many among the Avar tribes. who view her as a replacement for their ancient patron, Vara. Her realm is known as Raidariki, and is described as a collection of gothic constructs strung about in the dark black clouds, ravaged by crimson storms. There's also said to be no ground floor, so if one were to fall from one of these various constructs, a never-ending void would welcome them. The signature artifact of Valkyr are her dual axes, the Wrathborn cleavers. The jagged, imperfect weapons burn with unending cinders along its edges, which rip into its victim's flesh, leaving behind a smoldering infection that quickly spreads throughout the body. Such an infection is said to feel akin to being burned alive from the inside out. Her other artifact is a more recent creation known as Irem's Cuirass. The cuirass is capable of bolstering the wearer's physical capabilities and harnessing the wearer's rage. The more it feeds, the greater its effects. It can also channel that rage and release a devastating kinetic blast. He who will remain, the Reaper, and the waking end, Nokris is the god of death. Enigmatic and calculating, Nokris is more akin to a force of nature than some mere deity, a fact that he is acutely aware of. The realm of Nokris is known as the Deadlands, and as one might expect, this realm is a desolate place. It is often described as a vast desert-like realm with a strong gale that carries black sand across its vast horizons. The sky is in a state of perpetual darkness, and the clouds rain shards of obsidian. Scattered across his realm are ruined structures speculated to house labs Nokris previously used, but it is nigh impossible to reach their interiors. However, one structure remains known simply as the Dark Tower. Within, Nokris conducts his countless experiments to surpass even the fringes of the forces of life and death. The tower itself is said to be a craggy and oppressive construct that pierces both the darkened skies and earth. The interior of the tower houses hundreds of rooms, each dedicated to its own experiments and trials. At its peak lies a massive orb of unknown energies that fluctuates with uneasy movements, and its purpose remains just as secretive. There's only one artifact associated with the Lord of Death, the Reaper's Blade. Also known as the Soul Binder, the blade is said to absorb the very soul of its victims, trapping them within to embolden its power along with that of Nokris's. The Raven Queen, Our Lady in the Shadows, and the Hand in the Night, Umbra is the patron deity of all thieves, or at least those worth their weight in stolen gold. Umbra is the god of shadows, darkness, and thievery, and in the darkness of the void lies the Evershade, Umbra's realm. It is a realm of perpetual twilight, and it is unique in that it has a large central realm with multiple pocket realms surrounding it. These surrounding realms constantly shift and appear different to every mortal, making it tricky to navigate for the inexperienced. The largest of these dimensions is known as the Crow's Wood. It is a heavily forested place with massive trees which cast far shadows in the dimly lit realm. The central plain is the Eclipsed Shore. This lustrous plain contrasts greatly with the plains of the other Ventara, as it is rather peaceful and serene. It is described as an ever-expansive beach leading to a magnificent grove of ancient flora that reaches for the twilight sky. At the center of the forest is an intricate palace woven into the expansive branches. No mortal has ever entered this grand estate, and it is believed to be the seat of Umbra and her power. It is also said that Umbra has contributed 3 artifacts to the realm of mortals: the Skeleton Key, the Black Mask, and the Silent Striders. The Skeleton Key is capable of opening any locked door and barrier, even those that lie within its wielder. The Black Mask is one made entirely of obsidian, and its enchantment is said to completely erase the wearer's existence from history and memories, rendering them nearly non-existent as long as they don it. Lastly is the Silent Striders. These unassuming boots grant its wearer enhanced agility, stamina, and nullifies any sound they may produce. As one might expect, if a thief were to come in possession of all 3, well, let's just say that even the gods may need to watch their pockets. Chief of outcasts, lord of the outlanders, and he to be shunned, Malak is the god of pariahs, the ostracized, and the damned. It is said that Malak was once the weakest among the known Ventara, with some records even stating that he was but a lowly Velkin, a servant to long-forgotten or unknown Ventara, and for this he was shunned and branded an outcast. Driven by a deep hatred, Malak gathered those like him, the exiled, the abandoned, and the shamed, until he had an army worthy of notice, chanting his name. From there he marched on those that had wronged him, until they submitted or fell to his blade. And once all of his enemies had been bested, a new god emerged, Malak. The realm created and ruled over by Malak is the Proving Grounds, a massive arena in which those brave enough can attend to prove their mettle. All are welcomed, and those that survive will find a new family bonded by trials and differences. The realm itself, as mentioned, is dominated by a single coliseum, with the outer rings dedicated to housing and other various centers of sin. It is also said that the realm is bathed in a white light as a singular white star dominates the sky, unmoving and uncaring. It is believed that Malak resides within the star itself, but any true worshipper of Malak would deny such claims. Malak has only one artifact associated with him, the God Cleaver. A large battle axe, the weapon is fabled to be capable of slaying gods, but no tangible records support such a claim. What can be certain, however, is that the axe is capable of slicing through most materials with ease, making it a formidable weapon in the right hands. The shadow-drowned king, arbiter of anguish, and lord of apathy, Areti is the Ventara of sorrow and despair. When compared to his kin, Areti is by far the strangest of them all, and not because of his domains or any perceived weakness, but for the fact that he empathizes deeply with those affected by said domains. And unlike most Ventara, Areti is compassionate to mortals, so much so that it is said that those who find themselves in the deepest pits of despair speak of a ghostly apparition attempting to comfort them. Areti is also an oddity, for he is one of the few Ventara to control a familiar, a being made from a piece of his divine power. This familiar, known as Bast, takes on a feline appearance and is believed that Areti created her so that he would never be alone again. There has only been one somewhat reliable report of Areti's realm, but such an account was centuries ago. From what remains of it, it speaks of a dark and gloomy forest where the trees claw out and the birds sing with melancholy and dread. Presently, Areti has no known artifacts associated with him. That isn't to say they don't exist, but given the god's proclivities, it wouldn't be surprising to discover that any artifacts that he may possess, he keeps well guarded from the hands of mortals. And that concludes our second look of the dark deities of Iskara. In the next part, we will conclude with the final selection of Ventara. Once more you grace me with your presence. Do you simply enjoy what it is I have to share? Or are you after something only the gods can provide? Continuing our journey through the void, we will now discuss the final set of Ventara, powerful beings born from the primordial forces of chaos. Purveyor of the unknown, keeper of all, and the infinite understanding, Ogma is the horrendous, barely humanoid Ventara of forbidden knowledge and insignificance. Often manifesting as a colossal mass of eyes and tentacles, Ogma cares little for the opinions of mortals, for the only thing that concerns it is the knowledge they possess. And if most are driven to insanity, so be it. The realm shaped and overseen by Ogma is Agarima, and it is described as a writhing amalgamation of infinite libraries, laboratories, and tentacles. Within its extensive halls, one has access to the universe's greatest secrets, but uncovering such truths would require traversing this accursed realm, contending with the abominations that stalk it, and hoping to whatever god or gods you worship that they ensure some piece of your mind remains intact after reading even the most inconsequential scroll. There are 3 known artifacts associated with the mad god: the Qualzitoth, the Architect's Spine, and the Eyes of Tolawan. The Qualzitoth is an ancient tome that leaks a black ooze and is composed of sewn-together flesh. The tome is said to grant its reader truthful answers to any questions they may have. However, the number of questions is limited by one's mental fortitude. If a reader asks just one too many questions, they are granted a brief glimpse to something the mortal mind shouldn't perceive, before being damned to live with such glimpses of the beyond. The Architect's Spine is among one of the most unique artifacts, as it attaches directly to the wearer's spine. Once fused, the spine grants the wearer void abilities that only those born of Ogma's realm are capable of using. However, it is believed that removing the spine will always result in the death of the one it has currently fused with. Some records of those that have used the spine also speak of whispers lingering in the corners of their mind after prolonged use. Lastly, the eyes of Tolawan are actual eyes that must be implanted into the user. Once the eyes have been socketed, the user is granted enhanced perception that allows them to peer into that which the mortal eye could never see. Lady of lust, the salacious seducer, and the king of pleasure, Selene is the deity of lust, desires, and excess. One of the few Ventara that frequently changes their appearance, Selene, when dealing with mortals, will manifest as what said individual would find most attractive. Outside of this, they often take on an androgynous look. Given their domains, it is common for Selene and Drevin to partake in activities with one another or scheme together. The realm is the rapturous gardens, a place where pleasure, excess, and hedonism are paramount. The realm itself is a massive, idyllic landscape with stunning vistas and cities brimming with brothels, taverns, and much more. At the center of the realm floats the Rakashing spires, pristine and devilishly beautiful towers that hold the greatest pleasures of the flesh and mind. There are two known artifacts created by Selene, the Master's Mark and the Tongue of Selene. The mark is a finely crafted and bladed whip that can extend to unexpected lengths. It is a fierce and violent weapon that seems to take its own pleasure in the pain it inflicts. The Tongue of Selene, similar to the eyes of Tolawan, is a body part that must replace the user's pre-existing limb. In this case, one must remove their tongue and replace it with Selene's. In return, the user's charm is improved drastically, and those that listen to the honey words are quickly swooned by them. Bringer of transformation, lord of mutations and the melded madness, Vorak is the ever-changing deity of revolution, mutations, and strife. Vorak is particularly unique as it is believed that it is the amalgamation of several deities that became conjoined through some unknown means. After millennia, the identities and domains of these separate deities merge into one crude and grotesque form. Its realm is known as Conceals, and much like its master, the plane is a rough collection of various realms smashed together. One portion may resemble a simple swamp, and only a few steps away could be a land ravaged by blood rain and emerald green storms. The most disturbing aspect of the realm, however, is its mutagenic properties. It is believed that the strange magics of the plane will slowly induce mutations within any who venture through its lands for too long, morphing them into an unrecognizable creature. The artifacts associated with Vorak are the Rebel's Quiver, the Siren's Collar, and worst of them all, the Staff of Metamorphosis. The Rebel's Quiver is a powerful, albeit chaotic tool, useful to any archer. The quiver is said to enchant any arrow placed within it with a random enchantment. One arrow may create a fiery explosion upon impact, while another summons a bolt of lightning to strike. The Siren's Collar is said to have been crafted from the flesh of a slain siren, and allows the wearer to produce a potent sonic screech capable of debilitating or even killing anyone caught within its range. Lastly is the Staff of Metamorphosis. The staff is seen by those that are aware of its existence as one of the most cruel and nauseating artifacts ever created. So much so that the Circle of Arcanum, a well-regarded collection of Iskara's mages, has locked it away so that it may never fall into the wrong hands. The artifact is said to mimic the effects of Vorak's realm, but at a much more violent and rapid rate. Victims of the staff are irreversibly and brutally changed into beings similar to those found within Conceals. Stripped of their humanity and sanity, these abominations thrash out and attack anything that isn't the staff's wielder. The Lady of Sickness, the Putrid One, and the Decaying Goddess, Lix is the Ventara of revulsion, decay, and pestilence. Seen as almost a cosmic sibling to Worm, Lix is a festering being that revels in rot. Often taking on the appearance of a rotting and horrid woman, Lix rarely interacts directly with mortals, and only the most disturbed will worship her. Her realm is known as the Festering Mire, and as one might expect, it is a revolting plain with bubbling swamps and carrion-ridden marshes. Within the mire one can find a massive hut woven into a walking tree. The structure wanders the mire with a staggered pace, and within Lix toils away at concocting the next virulent sickness. Lix has 3 artifacts strewn about Iskara: the Vile Shroud, the Withering Hands, and the Oozing Scythe. The Vile Shroud is a veil made of an elegant mixture of emerald green silk and gold accents. While beautiful on the outside, the shroud will slowly wear away at its wearer, reducing them to a sentient walking corpse, and its enchantment turns said wearer into a plague spreader, as illness seeps from the wearer. Given its effects, only the most devout Taliks willingly choose to don the shroud. The withering hands are a pair of gloves that, once equipped, burrow into the flesh of the wearer and grants them abilities to quickly decay anything they touch. Lastly is the oozing scythe, a potent weapon capable of infecting its victims with virulent diseases that rapidly spread to anyone close to said victim. Mother of vampires, matron of blood, and the sanguine lady, Maeve is the alluring goddess of blood, murder, ritual sacrifice, and vampirism. A cunning and seductive creature, Maeve is particularly fond of mortal affairs and will often interact with those she deems interesting. The Matron of Blood is also the patron deity of the Crimson Covenant, a secretive order of assassins, spies, and infiltrators. The Vermilion Meadow, also known simply as the Meadow, is a plane within the void created and ruled over by Maeve. The Meadow is one among a handful of planes that is well documented and relatively explored by scholars and adventurers alike. It is also said that the plane is rather tame, at least when compared to other Ventara planes. The Vermilion Meadow is a vast sea of vibrant red grass and flora, with rivers and waterfalls of flowing blood. The sky is a deep perpetual crimson with a lone moon as the sole source of natural light. Few constructs dot the plain, and fewer individuals know what lie within. These constructs appear to be made of an unknown stone that starkly contrasts the forest-like surroundings. It is hypothesized that these structures contain unknown knowledge pertaining to Maeve, her realm, and her spheres of influence, or serve as conduits of powerful and ancient blood rituals. Maeve is associated with two artifacts, the Siphoner's Blade and the Blood Font. The blade, also known as the Blood Letter, is the oldest known artifact of Maeve. A dagger of exquisite make, its enchantments are said to drain the blood of its victims with every strike, replenishing the vitality of its wielder. And once the blade has satiated its hunger, it allows the wielder to use the blood it has consumed to create piercing and slashing projectiles until it is depleted and ready to repeat the process. The Blood Font is a strange red orb that is inscribed with powerful enchantments. It is said that the orb can grant its wielder access to unique blood spells, capable of manipulating and damaging the most fearsome of foes. Its exact origins are unknown, but some speculate that Maeve created the orb herself. Others suspect an ancient blood mage created the font as an offering of devotion. Lady of Toxins, the Viperess of Venoms, and Curator of Curses, Lilitu is the Ventara goddess of poisons, curses, hexes, and afflictions. Often taking the appearance of a humanoid serpent, Lilitu is rather enthusiastic to interact with mortals, especially when she can witness the effects of her domains in action. Her realm is known as the Spitting Spires, and it is here that it is said that massive flying serpents weave in between sky-piercing pillars that seep poison. Far below these beasts lies a vast ocean comprised of various acidic liquids. At the center of the realm lies a ziggurat, where it is believed that Lilitu experiments with new reagents and curses. Lilitu has two artifacts, the blue ringed coil and the fanged slicers. The coil are a set of rings that allow the wearer to tap into the elusive and extremely rare poison abilities handcrafted by Lilitu herself. The fanged slicers are a crude pair of daggers, with one being laced with an extremely potent paralytic toxin, and the other is said to place a curse on its victims. The Eternal Watcher, the Dark Guardian, and the Abyssal Judge, Vinishal is an odd deity, for his domain is more akin to an oath rather than some aspect of reality, for his sole purpose is to guard the void itself from anything powerful enough to disturb it. It is this fact that has many scholars debate if he should even be considered a god, but many suggest that his mere existence attests to his strength, for if he was a being of weak will or power, surely the other Ventara would have slain or consumed him. There are some that speak of a 20th Ventara looking to make their presence known to the world of Iskara, but such rumors are just that, tales spoken amongst the mad and the crazed. And that concludes our look at the dark deities of Iskara. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and feel free to like, subscribe, and comment any of your ideas, suggestions, or feedback down below. Take care, and happy world building.